Donald Trump may have anticipated resistance from his competitors, but what really takes him by surprise is the silent loss of support from his minor allies. Several countries are reviewing their travel recommendations to the United States following restrictive immigration policies, with a new travel ban affecting 43 countries under consideration. Cross-border shopping from Canada has plummeted 68% this year. 7 major U.S. retailers lost $2.4 billion, and shopping center prices are expected to rise 12 to 18% by spring. U.S. Customs data reveals Canadian visitor spending fell from $8.7 billion in 2023 to only $2.8 billion through August 2025, equating to 2.1 million fewer shopping trips and 340,000 retail jobs at risk in northern states. In less than 2 years, Canada strengthened its commercial infrastructure, e-commerce, and tax incentives, eliminating the advantage U.S. stores previously had with cross-border shopping. Target, with 47 stores less than 50 miles from the Canadian border, generated $188 billion annually from Canadian shoppers before 2024. This year, Canadian customer traffic fell 71%, leading to considerations to close 23 underperforming border stores. Canadian Tire expanded its general merchandise offering by 340% since 2024, directly competing with Target's product mix. Loblaws implemented same-day deliveries covering 89% of Canadian households, eliminating the convenience advantage that motivated cross-border shopping. Target's Plattsburgh store, which historically depended on Montreal area, shoppers reported a 73% revenue decline. Its parking lot, once full of Quebec plates, now remains almost empty during peak periods. Ontario eliminated provincial sales tax on clothing and footwear under $200 in January 2025, removing the 8% price advantage that justified cross-border shopping. Quebec implemented similar measures in March. The company must absorb a $340 million loss in Canadian revenue while maintaining inventory and staff at underperforming locations, driving price increases of 7 to 11% in northern regional Target stores. Walmart operates 38 supercenters less than 75 miles from the Canadian border, historically generating $2.1 billion annually from Canadian shoppers. In 2025, Canadian customer visits decreased 64%, threatening 19 stores in Minnesota, North Dakota, and New York. Metro Inc. and Sobeys invested $1.2 billion in automated distribution centers that reduced delivery times by 4 to 6 hours in major Canadian cities, eliminating the need to buy in large quantities that previously motivated cross-border warehouse shopping. The Grand Forks Walmart Supercenter saw Canadian customers drop from 2,400 to 340 per week, causing a $47 million annual revenue loss. In March 2025, the federal government imposed caps on basic food prices, keeping Canadian costs within 3 to 5% of U.S. prices. Provincial programs subsidize transportation costs, further reducing price differences. Amazon Canada expanded same-day delivery to cover 94% of border communities, offering selection similar to Walmart's physical stores without travel costs or time. Best Buy Electronics operates 29 border stores historically, generating $670 million annually from Canadian shoppers. In 2025, Canadian customer traffic fell 76%, forcing 14 store closures and eliminating 2,800 jobs. Canada Computers grew to 340 branches nationwide, offering products and technical support similar to Best Buy. Memory Express launched an online marketplace covering all Canadian provinces with same-day deliveries in major cities. Canadian retailers now import directly from Asian manufacturers, bypassing U.S. distributors and offering comparable prices without border crossing. Apple and Samsung established direct distribution partnerships with Canadian stores, ensuring availability similar to the United States. Best Buy's Watertown store saw Canadian shoppers drop from 2,800 to 280 per week, reducing annual revenue by $34 million. Amazon Canada expanded electronics inventory to match U.S. selection, offering next-day delivery to 91% of Canadian households. Home Depot and Lowe's combined 67 stores located less than 100 kilometers from the Canadian border, generating $1.4 billion annually from Canadian customers. In 2025, Canadian shopper flow decreased 52%, putting 31 stores and 5,600 jobs at risk. Canadian Tire expanded construction supplies sections by 280%, directly competing with Home Depot's contractor business. Rona increased inventory levels and professional services to match U.S. capabilities. Canadian provinces implemented licensing requirements and insurance verifications for construction projects using materials purchased abroad, eliminating price advantages that motivated contractors to buy at U.S. stores. Home Depot's Burlington store saw Canadian customers fall from 3,200 to 980 weekly visitors, reducing revenue by $41 million annually. Canadian construction material distributors invested $890 million in logistics infrastructure, enabling same-day or next-day deliveries in major markets. Macy's 31 border department stores generated $890 million annually from Canadian fashion shoppers before 2024. This year, Canadian customer flow dropped 59%, leading to 11 store closures and 4,200 job losses. Hudson's Bay expanded designer partnerships, obtaining exclusive Canadian rights for 47 international brands previously only available through cross-border shopping. Nordstrom Canada increased store presence by 160%, offering luxury experiences equal to or exceeding U.S. locations. Canadian fashion consumption migrated massively online. Retailers powered by Shopify captured 43% of the domestic market, offering curated selections with 24 to 48-hour deliveries, eliminating weekend U.S. mall trips. Canadian retailers now purchase directly from Asian manufacturers, bypassing U.S. distributors and offering competitive prices without border crossing. Costco operates 23 warehouses less than 160 kilometers from the Canadian border, generating $980 million annually from Canadian bulk buyers. In 2025, Canadian membership and purchase frequency decreased 48%, forcing operational adjustments in 17 stores and 3,400 staff reductions. No Frills expanded bulk purchase options without membership requirements. Metro Inc. launched large-scale delivery covering 87% of Canadian households, eliminating Costco trip costs and time. Bellingham Costco saw Canadian customers drop from 4,100 to 1,840 per week, reducing revenue by $67 million annually, while operating costs remained nearly unchanged. Canadian retailers eliminated membership needs for bulk purchases, offering similar products and competitive prices. The sum of Costco's annual fee and travel expenses no longer justified bulk shopping savings. Canadian wholesalers secured agreements with the same suppliers as U.S. Costco, offering identical products without border crossing. 7 large malls less than 120 kilometers from the Canadian border report a 43% drop in Canadian visitors, risking major tenants and commercial ecosystems. These facilities previously generated $166 billion annually from Canadian shoppers. Ontario opened 23 new malls between 2024-2025, offering entertainment, dining, and stores previously only found across the border. Quebec invested $540 billion in commercial infrastructure, creating destinations competing directly with U.S. malls. Walden Galleria near Buffalo previously received 67% weekend traffic from Canadians, supporting main stores, restaurants, entertainment venues, and specialty shops. Canadian weekend traffic dropped to 31%, causing 47 store closures and threatening main outlet viability. Canadian retailers developed Black Friday and holiday promotions matching U.S. prices and selection, eliminating special trips that sustained border malls during peak seasons. The collapse reveals profound transformations in retail competitive dynamics beyond economic cycles. Canadian retailers systematically invested in infrastructure, technology, and service improvements, while U.S. border stores maintained advantages based on historical patterns without adapting to new market conditions. 3 structural changes permanently altered the competitive landscape: local retail capacity expansion, e-commerce infrastructure development, and policy alignment eliminating price advantages of buying abroad. Canadian consumers now access similar products in variety, price, and convenience through national retailers, avoiding the time, cost, and complexity of shopping outside the country. Technological acceleration during 2024-2025 compressed traditional retail transformation timelines. E-commerce capabilities previously requiring years developed within months. This commercial realignment demonstrates how infrastructure investment and political coordination can change consumer behavior beyond borders, eliminating competitive advantages that seemed permanent but depended on temporary capability gaps. U.S. border communities face economic disruption far beyond retail closures, affecting employment, real estate values, and municipal revenue sources that relied on Canadian shoppers for decades. The 340,000 at-risk jobs include direct store positions plus parking, restaurant, hotel, and transportation workers serving Canadian visitors. Small border towns see unemployment reach 12–15% as main anchor stores close. Shopping centers and retail properties suffered 23–31% value declines due to disappeared Canadian traffic and terminated tenant leases. This depreciation directly impacts property tax revenues funding schools and municipal services. Border communities must maintain infrastructure and services for permanent residents while losing tax revenues from Canadian visitor sales. Commercial traffic decline triggers cascading failures in secondary businesses. Gas stations, restaurants, hotels, and other Canadian-dependent businesses report 40–60% revenue drops, forcing closures and layoffs. U.S. border merchants implement various adaptation tactics with varying success depending on local resources and positioning capacity. Retail consolidation accelerates as companies close less profitable border branches, while strengthening operations in markets less dependent on Canadian flow. E-commerce expansion attempts to recover Canadian customers through online sales and delivery services. However, Canadian digital infrastructure development and local retailer competitive response limit these strategies' effectiveness. Market analyses. Project continued cross-border trade decline as Canadian retail capabilities grow and policies eliminate U.S. shopping advantages. Investment in Canadian retail infrastructure continues increasing through 2027, with new distribution centers, store expansions, and e-commerce development. Political coordination among Canadian governments will likely implement additional measures, strengthening domestic trade, reducing U.S. shopping attractiveness. Growing climate change concern drives consumers toward local purchasing rather than long-distance shopping travel. The U.S. Department of Agriculture announced over $300 million funding for rural development in communities affected by retail changes. States like New York, Minnesota, and Vermont lead border area economic transition efforts through targeted investment programs. However, Canadian political response and internal trade development limit unilateral U.S. trade policy change effectiveness. In areas with reduced competition following store closures, prices rise 8–14% for general goods, clothing, and electronics due to reduced competitive pressure. Product variety decreases as specialty stores close and remaining shops reduce inventory to maintain profitability with smaller customer bases. Job opportunities decline in retail and related sectors like transportation, warehousing, and professional services linked to cross-border activity. The collapse of Canadian cross-border trade signals deep transformations in competitive dynamics and consumption patterns, permanently reshaping border zone economies. Investment in infrastructure, technology adoption, and political coordination created sustainable competitive advantages for Canadian domestic retailers, eliminating the need to shop abroad. Recovery prospects appear limited because competitive changes relate to structural capabilities rather than temporary economic conditions. Canadian retail infrastructure, technological systems, and political frameworks constitute long-term investments continuing to provide domestic shopping advantages regardless of currency fluctuations or economic cycles. For U.S. consumers in border regions, these changes mean less retail competition, higher prices, and fewer purchasing options. Border communities face transition from retail-dependent economies to alternative development strategies, sustaining employment and municipal revenues without cross-border commercial traffic dependence. The choice for retailers and border communities is clear: create new competitive advantages and economic strategies, or continue losing market share and economic vitality to competitors who invested in capabilities aligned with evolving market preferences and conditions.